Hello, this is Miss Kate, speech therapist with the Cheshire Center. I wanted to make a parent-focused video today that kind of goes into some of the prompting that I use. Now, this is something that under typical circumstances, we probably wouldn't ever get into. To be a speech therapist, it takes a 4-year bachelor's degree, a 2-year master's degree with 200 hours of directly supervised clinical experience, and 9 months of kind of semi-supervised work. So in those, 7 years, a speech therapist learns the underlying theory of child and language development, brain development, physiology, depending what area you go into. They learn lots of techniques, and then if they're good, they learn how to hide those techniques in play and how to meet a parent where they are and just give little bits of information at a time and not overwhelm. You don't want to seem like you're lecturing a parent. But again, we're in kind of odd times right now. Parents of elementary school children need to learn a little bit how to be a teacher. Parents of children who receive speech therapy kind of need to learn how to be a speech therapist. So what I want to show you today is a prompting hierarchy. This is something that I tend to keep in the back of my mind, but I want to go ahead and make it explicit because when we're doing this teletherapy, the parent on the other side may not always be where I am. So I want to show you where I'm coming from and how I proceed when I'm prompting your child. The hierarchy that I use is least to most. And the reason that I do this is it gives the child space to try on their own, and often those wrong answers that they give me tell me almost as much as when they get the right answer. There are some instances where I would use most to least, for example, if a child's really frustrated, or if it's a child who needs a lot of support, well, let's stay on task and just kind of give them a win. But for the most part, I'm going to go least to most. So let me show you a visual of what that looks like. Okay, so this is a written out least to most prompting hierarchy. I would start with a visual prompt, then verbal, gestural, modeling, partial physical, which is moving their body, and then full physical, which is kind of doing it for them. So let me show you a couple of examples of what this might look like. The first example I'm going to use is something that I will often use with young kids, which is a routine of opening a box to have them go, open. So I would kind of establish that routine with them. I would do it a few times. And then once I think that they have the idea of what we're doing, I would switch to just holding it and looking. That's our visual prompt of just, here's the situation in front of you. I'm looking, I'm showing that you need to do something. If they don't respond to that, given a little bit of wait time, I would move to a verbal prompt and say, what do we need to do? Or let's knock. If they don't get it then, again, after a little bit of wait time, I would move to gestural, which is I wouldn't quite knock, but I would go and show them by a movement of my hand what they need to do. Next after that would be me doing it. Open. If we're still kind of looking at me crazy or trying to pull it open, that's when I might take their hand and set it up on top. Just kind of hold by the elbow or by their arm and say, oh, you need to knock first. And last, if they don't get it, we'll do it together. The reason that I might go all the way up to the top of this is, again, when we need a win. We're going to give you as much support as you can until, yay, you did the right thing. So that is a play-based example of using that prompting hierarchy, of starting with giving them their own space, seeing what they can figure out on their own, and then building and building from there. I want to be sure to give time in between. And honestly, that's one of the hardest things, is learning to just sit and wait and look expectant. I want to show you another example of this that might be something that I would use more for older children. So this would be an activity that I might do to practice verbs. I would, let me see, switch to presenting. I would show a child this picture, and this would be my visual prompt, and say, what are they doing? If they don't get it from there, then we might do some visual choices where I have it in front of them. If those visuals aren't supportive, then I go to a verbal prompt. Do they play? Do they drive? Or do they color? If that's not helpful, then we go to gestural. And in this case, that might be acting it out. What are they doing? She's in her car going vroom, vroom, vroom. What do we call that? And then I would go back to those visual and verbal prompts. Is she playing, driving, or coloring? The last level for this one would be that I would say, she's driving. Do you see her? Vroom, vroom, vroom. What is she doing? And ask the child to tell it back to me in their own words. Ideally, I don't feed it to them a word at a time. I do the whole sentence. She's driving. Do you see her driving? Give that little bit of space and then say, your turn. If we're still getting lost just with having that question in between, that's when we would go, okay, look at me. She is driving. Your turn. So I hope that this was helpful and not overwhelming. Again, in normal circumstances, this isn't anything that you would need to know. But since you are almost a speech pathology assistant right now, I wanted to let you know kind of what's going on in my head so that we can be on the same page in supporting your child towards meeting their goals and being independent. Thank you.